I'm pretty fired up, my sweet listeners, as there's a segment of this podcast that has been in the works, which involves someone super special and influential in my own life. This person is my big sister, Andrea. She's 3 years older than me, and if you caught the first episode of this podcast, you know that I'm one of 5 kids in my family. We've got my little brother, Connor, me, my other sister, Katrin, Andrea, and my oldest brother, Brennan. The easiest way to look at it is that there are 2 boys on the end and us 3 girls in the middle of the pack. We call her Dre around here, so you probably won't actually hear me say her name very often. More on that and why that name came to be later. Here's the deal. Most of you listening to this podcast are creative entrepreneurs in some way, shape, or form, but I also know that a huge part of my audience are moms. They're the heroes behind the scenes, chasing dreams while also ensuring the kids stay alive. I want to bring some real talk to this podcast with someone I'm most comfortable with and whom I know you will simply fall in love with because she's not only super smart, but she's freaking hilarious, raw, and so are her stories and experiences as she does life with her 4 kiddos and wonderful husband, my brother-in-law, Heath. We're going to talk about marriage, motherhood, jerks at the grocery store, stepping into all that you're meant to be within the confines of motherhood and beyond those boundaries as well. Because the truth is that everything changes when you have kids. It gets a whole lot messier, deeper, fuller, and all-consuming. And what I know is that behind every title, mom, is a woman searching for more inspiration and connection in their lives to know that they're not alone. I could sit here and talk forever about my big sister and the influence she's had in my life, from the moment I was born to teaching me how to drive, to having my back on the volleyball bus in high school, teaching me the tricks to get away with so many things as a teenager, to holding my hand through some of the best and worst seasons of my own life. But I'm sure we'll hit on that and much more through her presence here on the show. So to kick things off, I simply want you all to get to know her better, hear her story, and to get excited about everything she is going to bring to this podcast. I honestly have no idea where to even begin, except maybe a super highlighted recap of your life and where you're at right now, what you're doing, and then I guess we'll just dive into some real talk about mom life and whatever else these delicious IPAs we're drinking bring to the conversation.
Welcome to At Home with Emma Rose. Your host, Emma Rose, has learned everything she knows the absolute hardest way possible and will help you navigate through the process of clearing the clutter, calling out your well-worn habits that might need changing, and finding the path to real, sustainable success in your business and life. Here's your host, educator, photographer, web designer, and latte lover, Emma Rose.
All right, Dre, let's do this. Welcome.
Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. I've always wanted to be on something live. My rap star name will show.
Well, these are fun because all of these podcast episodes I've been doing have been, besides Riley's little episode, they've been,
from a distance.
So actually sitting down with someone is a cheers. We've got our
cheers, baby.
Our Bodhi. Well, I have a Bodhi. You have a
Fremont Lush. I am not a Lush.
Oh my gosh,
not every night.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to throw it out there just from the get-go. We sound a lot alike, so you might not know whose voice is who. But this is my big sister, Andrea, and there's nobody else, like you heard in the intro, that I could envision bringing on this show to have some real talk, because I told her about, what was it, you came down to South Bend about a year and a half ago when we went to lunch. I'm like, you need a blog. You need to be blogging about not just the kids, but anyway, there's just so much. Okay, everyone, we're here in Wenatchee. I'm not in my usual little recording setup. We're sitting in Nana and Papa's side room. I don't know what you call this. We called it what did we call this?
Loft.
The loft
Kind
now,
of
but
like,
it used to be, when this was totally enclosed, this was like our AOL Gaming Central or like Instant Messenger room. But anyway, we are here because my grandma turned 100 today, actually. So today's
April
her
10th.
birthday. Yeah. And this last weekend was a huge party at the house and celebrating grandma, and it was wonderful. But we're just going to kick it off. Like I said, just maybe you could tell people. I could talk forever about who you are, but like who you are and your story. I know that's really hard to do. There's so much life that's happened between your birth and now, but like maybe just a little recap.
Yeah. So thank you, Emma, for having me on your show. This is amazing. And it's really fun to be sitting here together. And yes, our voices. So when I answer the phone, people often like are totally floored when they're friends of Emma's and they're like, whoa, you know, you guys sound so much alike. So I have no idea how it will sound when it's being recorded, if we'll sound that similar or if it'll.
Yeah.
And the laugh too. Sometimes my 7-year-old says, Mom, you have the weirdest laugh. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we both have it. So cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
There will be a lot of that this evening. But I'm Andrea. And as Emma said, a lot of people call me Dre. I am 34 years old. I have 4 kids. We live in West Seattle, a little part of Seattle that I just love. We've been there for 2 years. My husband is a second-year resident in anesthesia at the University of Washington. And that's been its own journey. So I'm a physician assistant by profession. I also run a business from home with Rodan and Fields, dermatologists. And this medical school thing has been a ride. So we have 2 years and a couple of months left. Our oldest child is 7. Our youngest is almost 2. We have 1 boy and 3 girls. So that sometimes can be a little bit interesting for our son to have 3 little sisters that are always following him around with this blonde hair, and he has brown hair, and he always says that, you know, people comment too much on their hair. And
yeah, let's just talk. I'll post a picture on the blog post, you guys, of my sister's little ones and their hair. I mean, it's a thing. Their hair is
it's just kind of crazy, and like it's this thing that, yeah, I mean, it just has been this sort of, I guess, discussion between all of our kids about like why certain people have certain color hair, and that like Crosby and I have brown hair, but he's like, why do you dye it to make it one? Like, so you can be like the girls. And I'm like, well, it's truth talk. I'm sorry. Like, you know, there's just little things like that are hard to explain to kids. So.
And those are things I haven't even really thought about because you've got your little toe heads. And then Crosby does have dark hair and darker features. And it's just...
People in the grocery store, it actually has been something for me that has weighed heavily on my mind because people will walk right up to me. And I think he is probably... Don't repeat this, Emma Rose's podcast. I think he's my cutest kid. Like, really, he's so handsome. Yet, for some reason, people can walk right up to us, all, 5 of us. So if Heath isn't with us, it's just me and the 4 kids. And they'll say, wow, your girls are so beautiful. And he's standing there and he's like, later cute. He says to me, or he's like, Mom, like, why do they say that? Like, this has been going on for years. And why don't they notice me? And I'm like, oh, honey. And I feel like our boys in this generation are just being, it's all girl power, which don't get me wrong. I'm raising 3 strong girls and I'm one of 3 girls in our family. And I believe in, being a strong woman. But geez, let's like give our boys some love and some, ownership of this world too.
I know, because you do see your littles with the bright blonde curly hair. I totally get it, but I don't have a boy, so I can't even imagine what those conversations are like with a kid who gets it and is figuring out these social things that are happening. And it's tough. When we had this conversation today in the car about chivalry and being a boy and expectations, and I don't know, it's such an open conversation to have. I don't even really know where to start it, but
without offending everyone and totally. Like one way or another, either you
But I think we should keep it real.
Let's be raw. Let's be real.
And, I mean, where do we even want to go? We just dove right in there to that. But it's so true. Well, keep continuing with your story. So those are the kiddos. And
yes, I mean, so as a physician assistant, I took my 7-year recertification exam. So I was in practice for 7 years. I started out in hospital medicine. So I was in the hospital in Wenatchee, where our family is from. So after PA school, we came from Seattle back over. My husband and I both rowed for the University of Washington, so we were on the crew there. So we're a little crazy if you know rowers, and you know that they get up early, and it's a kind of a crazy commitment. And most rowers that you meet are, unique. So that was a huge part of like shaping our relationship and our lives together. And then we moved to a smaller town, and then my husband decided when the economy tanked that he was walking away from the field of architecture, which he at the time had finished undergrad in architecture at University of Washington and was a national championship rower. And I feel like we had our shit together. I felt that we did. And then he was like, man, there's not really the security with this field, because it was 2009, right when the economy was tanking. And he said, I want to do something different. I want to go do something different. And I thought, oh, sure, you could do PA school or become a nurse or something. And
no, I want to be a doctor.
Yeah, I think I can do medical school. And at the time we didn't have kids. So I was actually thinking, sure, we can do anything. We're so capable. And then we added number 1. And then we moved to Arizona, left all of our family to pursue this journey. And I continued to work, although part-time. And the last 2 years since we've been in Seattle, I've been able to just be at home with our kids. And I will say there are so many days that I wish I could be at the hospital and just hand them off. And that's its own discussion, the being a stay-at-home mom and the struggle you face with that, and also being a working mom. And I've been and lived both of those sides in such a real way because I was pregnant with number 4 and working 2/3 time before I stopped. And so to have those feelings of both that, that conflict, and there's no right answer because either way, if you're leaving your kids in someone else's hands, yeah, they're getting a different experience. Sometimes you're getting a break. It's good. But then if you're choosing to be at home, you're also giving them more of the things that they really need, or at least I believe after watching our kids thrive for 2 years, that part of my soul might be gone. But, for them, their little souls, I think, are more fulfilled and their buckets are happier and fuller.
Totally. And I think I've watched you, I have 1, you guys know I have Riley, but watching my sister with 4 and how you're home, but you guys have these routines and they're in programs and school, and you take care of you too along the way. Like, what you need. And, but you have embraced, we've been talking about this week of embracing these seasons, and this is your season with your babies and they need you right now, and to be okay with that. But I totally understand that whole balance of, I've had the pressure of, do I go back to work or, but no, that hasn't even really, I don't even know why I said that because it's not even something I've even
but in the past, in the past it was, up until you felt your confidence grow. I feel like 3 years ago, you were kind of walking away from everything, right? And you were saying, screw this, I'm going to do my own thing. But then you had, I'm sure, a million doubts along the way, like we all have, and that it's a choice you're making, and it's not perfect. Like when you don't have that 9 to 5 and you don't have that career and you're making a choice to be on your own and out there, it's a little scarier sometimes because, like Emma and I are both working around our kids, and, it's not our priorities, and all of our work efforts can sometimes seem to others, I think, that oh, that's not a big deal because she just works from home.
Right. Exactly.
And it's no, we're doing real things. And
exactly. And I want to touch on that too. So I'm just so inspired by, I don't even know where to start with this, but the whole network marketing, with Rodan and Fields, you've built something really special with it. And you have a tribe and a community and a business, from home. And it's been incredible to see you thrive in that.
Yes, it's, I think more and more are calling it social marketing is what I would say. It's been a journey. I've been in the company for over 6 years, and I'm not even sure what I'd be necessarily allowed to say, because I know there's policies and procedures around stating Rodan and Fields on a public forum and those kinds of things.
Let's just put the disclosure in here. We are not associated or affiliated.
Yeah, this is just this. If I bring stuff up with that, it's just
this is a real part of her life and has been, and
that I'm not just at home with the kids for sure. I've built a significant income from home. Granted, it's been something that's been 6 years building, but it's doing amazingly well. And finding the time, though, like Emma said, I think my season right now has been full of excuses for my business because I've been parenting hard this year, and we'll get into that on a different episode, but it hasn't been perfect and it hasn't been easy. And I've known that some things needed to really be addressed, and we got help this year. And since I do a lot of it on my own, getting the buy-in from your spouse or your partner when you feel like you need to be parenting a certain way, or you're reaching out for help, but they can't make it to appointments or they can't be at the training. How do you handle that struggle?
Right. You and I have that in common too, is like, I know people are like, oh, Kat, like, yeah, we're living down on the family farm and stuff, but like Sean can't. Okay, I'm going to try to word this eloquently, or like not say that my husband isn't supportive, because he is in so many ways, just like Heath is a rock star husband and dad. But when you can't really depend on them. I mean, that's the
Right.
truth is like, I always have to have a plan B or C. Like, even if I have a wedding, it's like, this has been on the calendar for a year and a half, but sometimes things come up and I'm like, well, shit, you know, I
Yeah.
guess I have to find a babysitter for the whole weekend or whatever. And that's hard because
Mhm.
they're there, but they're also very,
You know what I mean? I feel like this is going to be a whole different topic.
I know this is.
We
you
love our
guys-
husbands. We have great husbands.
I know we
But
really.
let's
Andrea's
face
had
it.
sat down with me at dinner so many times, and we've cheersed to our husbands because,
Yes.
like, they are the real deal. I cannot say enough good things about not only her husband. I'm not married to him, but my man and what they do. But they're also like so ridiculous. in
We
so many
are,
ways.
and let's face it, we're working and raising the family and staying organized. And no matter how many tasks you delegate, you're still the task delegator. And like, I remember watching our parents as kids, and I was like, why does mom always like ask dad to do all this stuff? And I'm like, because either you ask or you stop asking. And I think the bottom line is I'm going to keep asking and keep trying, because I think that we need to, as women, to just stay sane and not feel taken for granted.
And there's this delicate line, as I found in my own marriage and struggle, in like the nag factor.
Mhm.
But I'm like, if I don't nag you, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So we actually discovered, and this is why I'm coming up with my first e-course on organization, but Trello, like I straight up leave my husband checklists now and there. It's like he
Mhm.
works off of lists way better than me just like passively saying things, you know.
Mhm.
He needs to be able to write that off. I've realized like checklists are kind of, not that it's perfect, but
Right.
we even talked today about just walking by the same thing 6 times.
Mhm.
And like you and I would swoop that up, or I
Mhm.
always leave things on the stairs that need to be brought upstairs, like
Right.
whether it's clean clothes or Riley's toys or books or whatever. It's like, and then they walk right by it, but
Yeah.
we pick it up and take it upstairs. It's hard.
Oh, and the laundry scene. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you get done with washing all of these little people's clothes.
Oh, and
then you're
towels and dish towels.
Yeah, and then you like see it in the bins and you're like, well, maybe I can add a little more on the next load to that. And you realize it's grown so much that you're afraid to even put it away because it's just so much work. And like, you know.
Yeah,
so-
and like we said, our goal with this is definitely not to talk shit about our husbands, although we probably will, because I mean that's just like what it is, and we love them so much. But yeah,
real talk.
Hey, I get it. As an avid podcast listener myself, I know that ads can be annoying, but I promise you do not want to fast forward through this one because I have something amazing to share with all you listeners who might be looking for a way to completely elevate not only your client experience, but also your personal relationships as well. And honestly, I found some of my favorite services and products by listening to ads on my favorite shows. I absolutely love surprising my clients, friends, and family with small, personalized, and thoughtful gifts. This is where Greetable has become my biz gifting BFF. You can personalize every aspect from choosing a print, choosing a gift, adding your own message and photos, and they ship it for you. It's so impactful when your people feel appreciated and valued every step of the way when working with you or simply doing life with you. A small gift can go a long way, and it's a gift that's so thoughtful and personal but really only takes a few minutes to put together. People rarely expect to find anything in the mailbox besides bills and junk mail. Whether it's welcoming a new client to the ERC family, or sending my big sister a happy birthday, or even a just because to my assistant to tell her she's killing it and that I appreciate her. You can purchase gifts as you need them without a subscription, or you can take advantage of their Insider Pro membership like I do for my business, which allows me to have free shipping on all orders, custom designs to match my brand, and much more. You also receive $60 a year credit back to your account. So if you plan to use Greetable consistently for your business, an Insider Pro account is definitely a no-brainer. Greetable has been so wonderful to offer my listeners and readers a generous discount code, which can be applied to your first Greetable purchase, or you can even use it towards your Insider Pro membership. Just go to Greetable, greetabl.com/Emma Rose Company. At checkout, enter the promo code Emma Rose Company to get 20% off today. Thanks for listening, and trust me when I say that your future self and clients will thank you. So, where do we want to go with this, Trey?
Should we talk briefly about grandma and then we can wrap it up?
I think
So
I just wanted you guys to get to know. No, I don't think we'll bore anybody. I think, well, maybe you never know. Well, you can just turn it off if you're bored. But grandma turned 100. I'm on an IP and a half. I'm feeling pretty good. 100.
100.
And so
I'm going to start with actually something that Crosby, our oldest, mentioned to my husband Heath when we were talking about coming here for the weekend, which my husband had to stay behind and work, bless him, night shift and residency life. So I came over. My sister-in-law drove in the car with us. So at least I had somebody to talk to on the road trips with 4 kids can just get kind of ugly in driving the mountain pass.
Natalie said all the kids were great, but Grace, you guys,
our baby is
Grace. I hope I can like get her recording on this. Just her babble is so ridiculously funny. Like she's so loud and just doesn't stop.
She's just trying to get hers, and it's like, anyway, side note,
sorry.
But we're getting ready, to go, or we're kind of walking through West Seattle at one point the week before. And Crosby says to my husband, so, 100 years ago, I know they didn't have computers, so they didn't have like iPads or anything, nothing like that. And Heath was like, no, they didn't have like phones. I mean, I really don't know the answer to phones, but I think grandma's case, no phones, right? Because
I don't know. I would
tiny town Kashmir.
I'd have to Google that, but maybe a house phone.
We need to be better historians, but our answer to Crosby was no, because we were thinking cell phones now, the landline thing Emma's going to research. But maybe in rural Kashmir, Washington, I don't know what their access would have been when grandma was.
I bet grandma had a house phone.
Yeah.
I'd have to ask her.
But we'll ask her.
Yeah.
That's on our list. But Crosby said, wow, that's a really hard way to live. And it's just thinking, when you really stop to think about someone who's 100 and what they've experienced, it's mind-blowing to think what they've seen happen.
And grandma's amazing. And you guys, for 100, she is living alone still. Obviously everyone's checking on her, my parents and my aunt and uncle and everyone, popping in. But her mind is as sharp as it could be. And I went down this morning to have coffee with her for her birthday. And man, she remembers everything. Her stories, and it's truly incredible. But yeah, you think about 100 years. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's a big, big deal.
And, for grandma, I think one of the things that sticks out to me about grandma is that she's always been so patient and so kind and so accepting. Well, so grandma raised 3 kids. Should we tell a little background about grandma?
Yeah.
We can cut it out if we.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to hide. Grandma was married to a man who then left for the war, and then they had a divorce. They actually divorced. And then
Connor,
years later, she took him back because she's that kind of woman, and not in a meek, victim kind of way. She loved him. She got married again, and then they got divorced again. They had 3 kids. And so grandma basically raised, one was older, but the 2 younger children, one of which was our dad, by herself in a small town where she had tons of support. But she
was a single mom.
Like, really, like mom.
My dad, I don't think this is spilling too much. He doesn't consider his dad like any sort of like male role model.
No, I don't think he was involved in, I think maybe he left when dad was.
Well, and when talking about the war too, Connor recently went down and grandma showed him pictures because he's like, I want to see more pictures of, my grandpa and grandma. And I have all the pictures saved on my phone. It's really incredible. But when he left and came back, I think, and I will, confirm this, but it had been like almost 3 years, or if not 3 years, since like they did not see each other when he was gone. I know it was a significant,
no matter what it is now,
no matter what,
like,
right?
Being apart for a week can feel like,
well, in communication, you
yes.
think about like handwritten anyway, so whatever. But yeah, just she married him twice.
And then we don't think she's ever dated again or had, we don't know about dating
that I know of. And we were talking about this before we hit record, I've never heard of anybody else except her.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And all of her kids went on to be successful and in their own unique ways. But one thing with grandma is that I've and I know Emma and I talk a lot about this kind of stuff and so how to verbalize it, but she's so peaceful.
Mhm.
And one time when I was mad at our big brother and I was pretty young, actually at this point, I think we're like middle school age. And I was explaining to Grandma how frustrated I was about something. And she said, sometimes you just have to give him a break. If you could look back and watch how your dad was with you girls learning to ride a bike versus with your big brother trying to ride a bike, night and day. And just how frustrated he was. And with you girls, he's kind of like laughing with you. And it's her perspective, I think. And that's actually an example of something that I rarely hear from Grandma, like an opinion in that way.
Yeah.
That's sort of like hey, now, she's strong, she's opinionated, but she never ruffles feathers. She never says something to create a stir the pot, which I feel like is so unlike me, And I'm like, Grandma, how do you? And she said, well, I have learned to just accept people the way that they are and to love them and to always expect the best from them. And I think that is something that Emma and I want to talk more about in general in society and how we treat each other and all of those things. But I think Grandma's point tonight is like, well, if they treat you like a dick, then like maybe you don't have to worry about it, is kind of what I took from it, versus I tend to be like,
take it,
wow, that was
and think about it and
move.
dwell on it and talk about it. And not that you can't talk about it, but let it fester, I think, in your own life. And
yeah, and just not get too worried about stuff. That's what she said. She just doesn't get too worried about things. And she doesn't let things ruffle her. And sometimes you just have to let it roll. I mean, those were the statements. Now, Grandma's had a stroke within the last couple of years, not a terrible, but her speech is slower. And, so I can tell like she would have probably had a lot more to say on that subject years ago, maybe. But anyway, Dad's favorite story is one of his former colleagues.
Oh, yeah, he told that this weekend.
Yeah, he told it at her big bash, her 100-year bash. And so it has always stuck with me, though, is that there was a colleague of his who turned from Dr. So-and-so man to Dr. So-and-so woman.
And this was, mind you, this was like
25 to 30.
But I was saying before the whole, like, all of this became such a social norm to talk about. It was like a different time.
Totally. And he was an OBGYN. And so when he made the change, a lot of people were very judgmental and like, how can this person still be my doctor? Or how can they take care of women? And all of these things. And Grandma was sitting it was a basketball game. And she was sitting in the stands listening to this gossip. It was in Seattle. And she was, again, lived in Kashmir, but was over visiting us. And Dad says she just states clear as day, well, he still would have the same hands, wouldn't he? And he'd still have the same heart, wouldn't he? So I don't see a big difference or a big problem, was the essence of the story. And my dad was just like, you go, girl. And I think that is the type of thing that like she has totally mellowed, but her opinions or her like,
but she heard all these women in front of her, like they had their chatter. And at the right time, though, she said, like, let's just accept.
Yeah, let's just shut this down.
Yeah.
Like, you're being crazy right now.
And, I love that. Yeah. I love that Dad told that story this weekend, too. It's so great. Yes.
Our dad really loves his mom.
Yeah. And she's just amazing. So, cheers to Grandma turning 100. And
yeah, it might be really loud.
It's perfect. I love it.
Well, thanks for having me, Emma. I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, you guys, I think this is the first of many.
We need names. We should take a poll.
Right. Let's take a poll, you guys. Sister Chats. Obviously, that's not the name I want to go with, but like something we're going to talk on the regular, because already tonight, I think there were about 20 different directions you could go. That's why I thought like an introduction episode would be great, but also really hard, because I'm like, I just want to like go everywhere. Yeah. But I think we have so many things that we can shed light on and talk about. And even the situation, you told me this funny story this morning about at the coffee shop or wherever you were. Anyways, there's so much to come. And I think this is just the beginning. So you guys, if you have any ideas for names for these chats, because they're going to be, we'll try it out for a while and see how they go and what you guys think. But I hope you love it as much as I love sitting here with you. Like when I come up to Seattle, we should just plan on recording a couple of these.
Yes. So, I love it.
Thanks for being here, and I'll post you guys on the blog post along with every other show note episode, picture of my sister and her sweet family so you can have a visual with what we're talking about. And my grandma, I took a bunch of pictures at her party this past weekend. And yeah, so thanks for being here, Dre.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Good night.
Thanks for listening to At Home with Emma Rose. Visit athomewithemmarose.com and dive into the show notes for every episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.